Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about failed projects. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick. Hi Frederick, what if you were part of a team that was working on a project that has now failed and your teammates are conspiring against you to make you the scapegoat in order to get rid of you? How would you respond? Ooh, this is a good one. So I have had these sorts of situations a few times, actually, and the way that I have solved it is that I have adopted a like hysterical level of transparency. Because the thing that I've found to be the worst part about most of the work that I do, at the very least, is that I have been very often put in a situation where people have asked me to take charge of a certain situation where quality or there has been issues or things like that, make changes for the better. Now the problem I have is that when my managers say that, what then when I actually do these things, the problem that they never account for is that they're going to get complaints on me from the people who I need to, like, from the teammates, as you were describing, like, because frankly speaking, there is this, and I think it's so naive. I really dislike it. And that is that the manager thinks that, yeah, Frederick's going to come in and like we're going to start seeing tests and quality is going to raise and everything's just going to be fine, right? Well, no, that's not how it usually works. That's how it works if you have very engaged, motivated people who are open to changing and adapting and things like that. That's not the average senior. The average senior is going to kick up a fuss over that they have to change their workflow or their practices and stuff like that. And the reason why they do that, that's why I tell the managers immediately, like, as soon as they start talking about it, I'm tell them, okay, you have to protect me now. You have to know that I'm not going to be able to make everybody happy here because I can't ask someone, for example, who doesn't believe in quality and testing and stuff like that to start doing that because they haven't done it before. And the reason why you are now asking me to go in is because they are not doing it. If they were doing these things, that they had the talent and the skills and so forth from the get-go, why would I have to be involved, right? Then they would have already done it. And so what I do is that I make sure that my manager and all the people who are going to get complaints, so like the other people, the manager, they are in the same chat, like instant messaging chat and so forth and so forth, so that there's a traceability of every single thing I've ever said. This works for quite a lot of things where basically as soon as I'm going to make a decision or I'm going to say anything or so forth, which has an impact on the delivery time or the quality or the expectations or anything like that, I make sure that there is traceability. The reason why I want to do this is because what usually happens in IT projects is that you isolate the developers. They will isolate themselves and sit in their own private channels and only talk to each other and so forth and so forth. And now what happens is that it becomes word of mouth. What they will do is that they will go behind my back and talk to my manager, complain, say that things like, oh, it's Frederick's fault or he's very annoying, blah, 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 blah. And now my manager is going to have to go and talk to me and hear my side of the story. And now the problem becomes, which is still a problem that I fight with to this day. And this is the biggest difference between legal matters and your job, guys. In a court of law, they have to prove that you are guilty. Here, they just need to have complaints and not like you. That's it. You can get fired. I've seen it before, guys. I've been the guy who's been doing this. It doesn't matter if you're the best person in the team, because if there's enough people complaining about you and your manager is not interested in actually looking at the results or like hearing you out or like actually looking into the thing, they're just going to go with what they got, like, because complaints are enough. They don't need any proof. So what I try to do is twofold. First and foremost, make sure that everything is transparent. Every single decision you make, conversations, anything whatsoever, is easy for the manager to verify. And then you reference that stuff all the time and you try to align the decisions that you have made and motivate them by saying that, well, for example, let's say that you fail the project, so forth. Well, we were writing tests, for example, or actually that's what we agreed upon. Like, basically you include the manager in all the major decisions that will impact the delivery. So if a project fails, then you should very quickly ask the question, why did it fail? Because if you know that your manager has, and in many cases they won't even look at it. Like I do this, I know for a fact, guys, that my manager is not checking every message that I post or like things and so forth and so forth. But what I try to do is to build up a history of transparency and motivating all the decisions and suggestions that I make in a public forum. I try to keep things as public as possible, because I know that once it's time to start pointing fingers and blaming and so forth, the more I have made sure that my manager has had full knowledge of every single decision that I've made, the easier it is for me to argue for my case. Because if there's nothing, if there's no history and everything's just a big black box, then all they have to go on are the complaints. It's literally the same thing as in court or so forth. If there's no evidence or anything like that, then it's word against word. Word against word is really, really horrible if there's more than one person who's going to want to point the finger at you. And the second thing that you need to do is to make sure that your manager agrees with your decisions and that they like you at a personal level, because that's the thing that is mostly different from legal topics and stuff like that. Because as I said, even if you have traceability and stuff like that, you can still get into hot water over the fact that it's just a classic one which I always fall for is someone feels offended or someone feels threatened or feels something like basically feelings. My manager comes and says, oh yeah, there's a bit of dissatisfaction with things and so forth. And my usual argument to my manager is that, and this only works if I have a history with them, when I build up some good rapport with them, if I have a good go back and forth with them, and I always tell them the same thing. I'm very sorry to hear that people are unhappy, because as you can see, like all the decisions that we've made or all the discussions and so forth, they have been in a very public forum. You see, I've never insulted anybody or like raised my voice or anything like that, or been intentionally tried to be hostile towards people. But sadly, if you want these sort of changes, if you want things to succeed, certain things need to be done in order to get there. And if that's not something we can do, then I would love to hear your thoughts on how could I do it differently? How can I make them, for example, write tests if they're not looking for it? What should I do? And then if you don't have a better suggestion, then we can also just say that, okay, we'll just leave this. I won't say anything, because as I like to say, the easiest way to get along with everybody is just to let them do whatever the fuck they want without ever having an opinion or anything like that on what they're doing. So what I want you to take away from this is that if someone is trying to point their finger at you in your place of work, or if in this case they kind of scapegoat you for the product failed or anything like that, then the best thing for you is make sure that you have a really good knowledge of where is the state of the code base. In other words, make sure that you have transparency, so that when you talk within the team, don't just include the teammates, the developers. Make sure that everybody outside, even the stakeholders, the managers, whoever, they're in that channel. And then guys, I've been in conversations where developers felt that they got angry at me because I would never talk to them in a private channel. And I said, it's very easy. If it is a private conversation between you and me, like we're talking about lunch or something, that's a private conversation. If it has to do with our deliverables, so the decisions we are making as a team, anything team related, it's happening in that channel. And the reason being, because I foresee this situation happening. I know that it can happen. And because I know that it can happen, and I know that because I have had a history of being in these sorts of situations, I know how much of a difference it will make if there's basically a group of people versus one individual saying that they're saying opposite things, and one person, the group saying, oh, that person is this and that person kind of goes, I don't know what they're talking about. If the managers have nothing to go on, then the majority usually wins. If you at the very least have some transparency and history where you can showcase, well, I'm not really sure what concrete things have they been asking, because everything is in our public forums or so forth and so forth, it becomes easier to sort of persuade the manager to look into it a little bit more deeply. And then once you have established some traceability and make sure that so that there are concrete things, because dissatisfaction is easy to just say that, hey, you're unhappy with performance, and then you try to ask them what concrete things have I been doing that are not so nice, and then you try to pull it back to, is there any proof of this whatsoever? If we fail the deadline, for example, well, I shipped as many cards as everybody else. So like you show like basically on the boards and so forth. I've followed all the same principles. I've gone through the code reviews and so forth and so forth. Everything seems to be gone. Like it's just present the proof that you have, because they won't have usually proof themselves. They will have emotions, and emotions are powerful if it's a really big group that is saying the same thing, but you can mitigate a little bit of that risk by actually pulling things back to concrete proof. Second thing is, make sure that you have a good, transparent conversation and like relationship with your manager, because I'm very sorry to say that you can be scapegoated by the whole team, and your manager might just listen to them because they don't like you at the personal level, so forth and so forth. I'm very sorry to say that I wish that worked differently, but at the very least, if you have a good relationship with the manager, they will stop the emotional response that they usually get when a lot of people are complaining, because the standard is, oh yes, people are complaining, therefore like there's where there's smoke there's fire type of deal, right? They're going to act on it. But if you have proof that you've done everything and so forth, and you have a good relationship with the manager, then at the very least you can mitigate this a lot of the finger pointing to the point where they might give you some token reprimands or some token adjustments that you should work on, or so forth and so forth. But they're not going to go like all the way to you're going to get fired out of this thing. The sad part is that if everybody is really hell-bent on scapegoating you, it always, in my experience, comes down to the same thing. Is the manager more open to believing your side of the story versus that of the people who are doing the finger pointing? Because if you, it's just going to be word against word at the end of the day. And so you have to understand that what keeps you employed is one part that your manager likes you and one part that your team likes you. If the team starts pointing fingers at you and so forth, the only thing you have left is, as I said, what is your relationship with the manager? Because if everybody's out to blame you for the failures and so forth, you have to convince them that it's something weird with blaming all of that on you, and have some way of showcasing that these people, they are saying these things, but for some reason they're not doing A, B, C. You have to basically attack it in the same way as you would in a court of law. You have to question if this is really true, and present some evidence that it might not be as easy as you are responsible for all of this, right? You have to sort of bring it back to what proof is there versus just having a lot of people saying something. And if you don't prepare for that from basically day one, it can be really, really tricky. Have a great day.